Hello, Becky here. Welcome back to my channel. I am here to do a little mommy moment. This topic that I want to talk about, I could talk about forever and ever and ever. So I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. We are dog sitting. So this dog up against here is our dog Peaches. And then that one that just jumped down there is Butter, and she is the one we are dog sitting. And usually Peaches is the one barking like crazy, but dog parenting moment here. They're great. I don't know why they're being so growly this morning, but I'm going to record this and go for a walk with them. I really don't know what to say. I know what I want to talk about. I'm not really sure how to talk about it, I guess. I took a couple little notes here. I use Google Docs for everything, so I got a couple little notes here just to help remind me about what I want to talk about. It feels weird to say that I want to talk about parenting a special needs child because... Sorry, the dogs are so noisy even when they're just walking. When I think of special needs, I've always thought of things like autism or Down syndrome or some kind of severe disability that affects your mobility. Like you are confined to a wheelchair or missing a limb or a disability like being blind or deaf. Something that just seems a little bit more obvious, I guess. And now we are learning more and more about neurodivergence and kind of the scale or range or spectrum of disability. That's the word I was looking for, like the autistic spectrum and Asperger's. We're learning more about disability and even learning challenges or just how people learn. Audio versus visual versus like hands-on learning. I do have a book about the different way kids learn that I need to go and like flip through again. I've read it before, but I can't remember all the information from all the books I've read over the past dozen years of being a parent. Anyways, I don't think of special needs as things like dyslexia, for instance. Yes, it is a challenge when it comes to learning or teaching somebody with dyslexia. I guess it just seems kind of minor, but I don't know. I don't have dyslexia, and as far as I know, my kids don't. What I want to talk about, which everyone seems to be talking about, is ADHD. This is not a conversation about whether you should take or put your child on any kind of medication or anything like that. I am no expert in this or anything. I just want to share like my struggles right now that I'm dealing with and having a child that has been diagnosed with ADHD, and whether or not you choose to put your child on medication. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting the diagnosis. I know some people don't like labels and feel like it can be constricting, but I feel like being able to put a name to something can help you if you are the one who's personally been diagnosed, or if you are the parent or caregiver of someone who has been diagnosed. You can look up the research and search out people who have been living with this for longer, again, whether they are personally living with it or they are taking care of somebody with it, to see what works for them and things you can do to help yourself or your child, or whoever you may have in your care that would have this. Again, medication is something you need to talk about with you, your partner, with the child possibly, and of course with your family doctor, with a professional, somebody who knows what they're doing. Again, this is not about medication though and what you choose to do. I just wanted to talk about the frustrations that we have been having with our third child, and I took some like B-roll footage of our house and the absolute disaster. You can see this blue strip here in the corner, that's my son's bedroom, and there's like that big black spot there. That is a hole in the wall, which I took video of. I also just want to put out there, I'm not necessarily looking for advice. By all means, if you have things that have worked for you and your children who have experienced very similar things, I am open to it. I just want to share my frustrations and stuff. I have had a lot of well-meaning family members and stuff give advice about discipline and everything, but a lot of it is that old school, like spanking is just generally considered a good thing with your child, and groundings and punishments, right? Without taking into consideration the special needs that this specific child has. And having multiple children is difficult. Anybody who has more than one child knows you can't discipline them the same way. You can't teach them the same way. You can't even express and show love to them in the same way to each of your individual children in a way that they will understand it. Every child is different and every child's needs are different, whether they have additional special needs or disabilities on top of just needs that all humans have to be loved and accepted and cared for. All of my children need me and need my attention and need one-on-one time, but what that looks like is different for each child. And it is exhausting, and this could be a whole mommy moment on its own. It's more difficult though when you have a child who just demands more of your time. Our one child can be very, very demanding and is definitely one of those that seeks attention through destructive behavior. And we have talked to him before about, you can be angry. We've had this discussion with all of our children, like you can be angry without destroying things. You can be upset with your sibling without hitting them. All that emotional intelligence and regulation, which is very difficult and a whole other topic on its own. Again, another mommy parenting moment kind of thing of raising your kids to be emotionally intelligent. This reminds me of something. Teaching your kids emotional regulation and intelligence when it was not taught to you as a child. So it's like in your 20s and 30s, it's like you have to parent yourself in order to parent your children. You are learning right along with them. I feel like I am raising myself and trying to pass that on to my children at the exact same time, and that's very difficult. All of that to say that we have struggled with our son and destructive behavior. As you can see in the video that I took, when we bought this house, the people who owned it had new countertops installed. And you can see the gouges in it that were done with a knife or something. I don't know if it was like a butter knife or whatever it was, but just because. We've talked to him before about these destructive patterns, and I'm bored because I feel like it, because I need to. It's like a compulsive thing. He has to do it. I think a cloud came by. Can I make you brighter? What I've learned about ADHD is that there is a lack of impulse control, and we totally can see that with my son. And well-meaning people suggest things like spanking for discipline, punishment, really. And again, I'm not a professional when it comes to child psychology, child raising, child care. I'm not a teacher or a doctor of any kind. I am a mom with 4 kids who has read a lot of books and listened to some podcasts and stuff. But this video is not the time to talk about spanking and whether or not it does work. The people who tell you to spank will tell you that it works. That it worked when they were spanked as a child, and look how well they turned out. They spanked their children. Look how well their children turned out. People who advocate for spanking believe it works. And again, I am not a professional. You can look up the studies yourself about whether or not spanking works long-term or short-term or whatever. I think the general consensus nowadays is that it does not work. But again, I'm not here to condemn you if you choose to use that as a form of discipline or punishment. I do want to caution, though, for people who suggest spanking, you really, really, really have to be careful when you suggest spanking as discipline to somebody, because a lot of times, whether or not you believe that spanking can be a positive form of discipline, a lot of times parents are very frustrated. And as far as I know, those who advocate for spanking say that it has to be done in a manner where the person doling out the punishment, is not angry. And you do it in a calm manner, and it is very intentional, and the child is understanding that this is a punishment for the crime. The problem is more often than not, the person who is doing the spanking is in a heightened state of frustration and anger, and that spanking just ends up becoming a physical release of anger for them. And it is not a discipline that is actually helping or working. It is just punishment that is helping release the adult's frustrations on an innocent child, no matter what crime was committed, no matter what they did that needs correction. Spanking just ends up being a release for the adult. So you really have to caution when you suggest somebody use spanking as a discipline. That's all I want to say about that. Because our child, we have learned things like spanking don't work for him. It might work in the very moment, but long term, it doesn't matter. He's not comprehending the discipline. We have not found a good discipline so far, like negative consequence for negative behavior. And I know there's Again, this is not a conversation about why the negative behavior is happening and he's seeking attention. It's dealing with things when we need to deal with it, though. Right now, I feel like I could give him all the attention in the world and just spend every day, every minute, every waking hour with him that's possible, and he would still need more time and attention. And I feel like, people talk about a gas tank or a bank account or whatever, and you have to fill it up. You can't withdraw anything if you never put any deposits. So he's really low, and he needs a lot of deposits right now. I understand that. Like I said, I've read a lot of books. It's implementing the stuff that I've read, that I've learned. It's one thing to have the head knowledge. It has to be implemented. I get that. But it's just very frustrating when you're seeing so much destruction and acting out in ways that is destroying property. There hasn't been a lot of physical harm done to other people or to themselves, thank God. There is the typical sibling rivalry and fighting, and she stuck her foot out and tripped me, he hit me, throwing things at each other, but nothing like super serious where we are worried that our children are in physical danger of one another. But the destruction of our home is very expensive, disheartening, and frustrating. Our son doesn't even have a door on his bedroom right now because he destroyed it to the point where we had to remove it. Sometimes we like to sit and talk about what our dream home would be, or for our kids in this instance, what their dream bedroom would look like. Like, let your imagination go wild. What would you want your dream bedroom to look like? But also a little bit more realistically, what would you want your dream bedroom to look like in our home right now? With the walls you have and the windows you have and the space that you have right now. What is something we could do to make your bedroom special in your room? And our girls, they sat down, they did pictures, we talked, and it's kind of like a little fun family time. And my daughter had like one of those hanging chairs in a room that she would sit in with a spot for the cats and stuff. My other daughter just absolutely loves cats, so she had like 10 cats in her room with hanging baskets for them to sleep in and things on the wall for them to sleep in. All this crazy stuff, right? And all 3 of our kids used to sleep in this one bedroom. And now the girls are old enough to be downstairs. So this is our son's bedroom. And then the baby was in our bedroom for the first year and a half or so. And now the baby shares the room. When he's not co-sleeping, he shares the room with his brother. So I asked my son, what do you want in your bedroom? What's your dream bedroom? Anything you can imagine. I want it blue or teal. Okay, you want to paint the room teal? Yes. And what else? I want it blue. And we're like, okay. And like, what would you put on the walls? What would you put in there? What kind of bed would you have? He grabbed a blank piece of paper and the teal crayon and scribbled in a spot and said, this is what I want my bedroom to be. And I went, fine. That's more realistic. That's more attainable than what the girls want right now. So we had a big mural painted on the wall for when the girls were sharing their bedroom, and it had like a castle and a princess and a horse that we had rainbow colors on because my daughter really liked the My Little Pony that had rainbows. It was really nice. But there's holes in the walls and, whatever. It was time for a change. So my husband and son, this is the frustrating part. My husband and son, he's like, okay, you've put holes in this wall. Let's patch the holes. And I was talking to somebody about this, about my son putting holes in the wall. And part of the discipline, we thought we would kind of combine discipline and one-on-one time with my husband and son by having them patch the walls together. My son is 8.5 now, just for context of how old he is. And my friend said, no, you can't do that. That's just fun for him. So like he's going to purposely put holes in the wall so that he gets time with dad. So I'm like, on one hand, you're telling me to do punishment, do some kind of discipline. And on another hand, you're telling me, there's going to be like 4 hands this person has. On another hand, you're telling me that he needs more one-on-one time. But on that third hand, you're telling me that fixing the holes that he has created in our home and having one-on-one time with dad isn't the right solution. So I'm like, then what do I do? Anyways, they patched all the holes together. It wasn't perfect. We could have done a little bit more sanding, but whatever. It's his bedroom. We're not trying to sell the house, so it's fine. And then we painted the walls. And I think everyone helped paint the walls, including the girls. This bright teal color, we're like, sure, fun. It like shines out of there. And then like the next day, he had taken a permanent marker and wrote his name on the wall. And you can see the one hole there. This wall behind me where this green thing is, we had our wedding photos. It was like our wedding wall. And then a couple of family photos as well added to it. Like not just our 6-person family, but my like in-laws and stuff like that. Everything was on this wall. We had to remove everything off that wall because that wall is the bedroom wall for my son. And he's got 2 closets in there up against that wall. And I took video of the hole there. And he just bangs these and they were shaking and there was wedding stuff on there. My vase of fake flowers, things like that. And he would just shake it so much and things were falling and everything like that. We just had to remove everything off that wall. And we also had painted this wall as well. This whole wall behind me up over to where the bathroom is, we had repainted that. That's why it looks a different color than everything else, because we don't have the time or the money to paint our entire house. So we're like, we'll do one wall at a time. So we made this wall all nice, and he literally stuck a hole all the way through. And if you put your eye to it, you can see into his room, or he can see out here. And you can see the huge holes in the wall that I need to get him to fix because they're by the crib. It's bad. And the holes are so bad. And it's just funny for our son. Like, he's like, whatever, this is fun. Look, I can see through the walls now. And it's so frustrating because we went through all this work to make the bedroom so nice and paint it and everything just for him to draw on it, first of all, which was frustrating. And then the holes and his windows. He's broken like 3 windows in this house. I think one of them was an accident, just normal kid things in the basement. A toy went down there, whatever, broke a window. Frustrating, but whatever. His sister, I get it, siblings fight, but they had friends over, and his friend went into his sister's bedroom downstairs, which is below his room. And his friend was in there, and she locked the bedroom door, wouldn't let him in. And she's like, no, I'm playing with your friend. Too bad. And he was mad, and he went outside, and their bedrooms are in the basement, and he was trying to get in her bedroom or something, and he smashed her window to get in her bedroom. And it's 2 panes of glass, so he broke the outside pane, not the inside pane, thankfully. Because that window, like, her bed is up against it, so there would have been glass, like, in her bed and everything. So very, very frustrating there. His bedroom window he broke because when he was younger, we had to put locks on the windows. It's so frustrating because this is dangerous. Windows are a way to escape if there is an emergency, like a fire. But he would, at like 3-4 years old, open the window and just like climb out, and his window faces the main street. The main street of our neighborhood. It's not a busy, like, highway speed street. People are supposed to drive 15 kilometers an hour through our neighborhood, but it's still a street. And, you know, from there, he can go to the busy road. The main busy road here is not very far away, right? So we put a lock on it so that he could only open the door a certain amount, not all the way, to protect him. We had to put a lock on our front door too that he would be unable to open. So as he got older, he decided that it was time to take the lock off the door or off the window, and it takes a special kind of like screw to take it out, kind of like an Allen wrench. And he couldn't figure it out. He couldn't find the tool. So he used a different tool, like a wrench type thing, and smashed the window by accident. Like, it slipped. He wasn't purposely trying to break the window. It was an accident, but it was still, he could have come and talked to us, of course. There's definitely positives and negatives with anything, especially when it comes to neurodivergence and everything. Anyone who has kids with special needs, or maybe a sibling or something, you know that there's the positives along with the negatives. All my children are very independent, but he's very resourceful, and he will find ways to do things that he wants to do. And he wanted that window open, so instead of talking to us about being responsible enough to have the window fully open, he just ended up breaking the window, trying to open it himself. And that's a problem. That's glass. That's the inside pane of the window. I think he cut himself, but not bad enough. If it was bad enough, I remember. But he hurt himself and has this broken window. It's also an expensive thing for us. We are in a better financial position now than we were before, but it's still very frustrating, of course. And the financial part of it is like the least part of it, right? But it's still an added part that is frustrating. And I think he broke that window, he was 6. So I think he also broke our TV throwing a controller at it because we told him to turn off a game, or a game upset him or something. I can't remember. But that's another really expensive thing to break. Kids break things. Kids can be destructive. Kids can fight and accidentally break things. It's normal. It's his destructive behavior that has been really hard. And it's slowly getting better with medication and age and trying to redirect that energy. But that's also frustrating. People are like, oh, you take that destructive behavior and put it towards something else. Like, if we have a lot of boxes, cardboard boxes that need to be broken down, right? Like, okay, hey bud, you like to destroy things, come jump on these boxes and tear them apart and break them down so we can fit them into the bin. But of course, if you're asking him to do that, he's too tired. His legs don't work. He worked hard all day. He had gym class that day at school or whatever, and he is unable to move and function. So if it's something you're asking him to do, he can't do it. If it's just something he wants to do because he's bored, or he decides he wants to do it, then he's all gung-ho and has all the energy in the world to do it. My note said, I never made the correlation of having a child with ADHD to being a parent of a child with special needs. I just assumed it was something where people with ADHD just have a hard time focusing, and the age part of it, they're just very hyper and fidgety. They like to fidget. They're always tapping their foot or jiggling things or, whatever. Hyperactive, lots of energy. And boys and kids have lots of energy to begin with, but these ones are just a little more, right? And we have a family resource worker who's been coming in to help us, and she sent us a video, and I will link his YouTube channel, ADHD Dude. And one of the videos we were watching, he talked about a child with ADHD is behind cognitively than their peers. And this has nothing to do with intelligence. And I can vouch for that. My son is very smart and resourceful, like I said, and can come up with some very creative solutions to things. But cognitively, they can be behind. And a child who is 8 is cognitively around the age of a 5-year-old. And that really hit me so hard because parents, be honest, very often you're like, just act your age. You know better. You're blank years old. You should know better than this. And I realize I'm expecting my 8-year-old to act like an 8-year-old, but mentally, cognitively, he is at a stage of like a 5-year-old. He's very, very smart, but when it comes to things like impulse control, he doesn't have the same cognitive abilities. I was going to share a couple of things about what cognitive ability even is. What does that even mean? Cognitive abilities are skills your brain uses to complete essential day-to-day tasks like thinking, learning, reading, remembering, speaking, listening, and paying attention. Cognitive abilities occur naturally in the brain, but you can further develop and strengthen them by challenging yourself. And attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is characterized by the symptoms of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity, and by functional impairment. Impaired cognitive development is also reported to be associated with ADHD. That really hit me hard, learning that I am treating my 8-year-old son like any other 8-year-old child. And he's not my first child. He's got 2 sisters that are 4 and 2 years older than him. So this isn't my first rodeo with having an 8-year-old. But like I said, every child is different. Every child's needs are different. And I'm expecting something he can't even give me. And I've had this conversation with my husband. My husband will get so mad and so frustrated. And I'm like, look, you're saying to him, don't you understand this? Or don't you understand that? Or can't you do this? And I'm like, no, he can't. He can't. He's actually mentally, he's incapable of doing this thing. And again, this has nothing to do with intelligence. His IQ, nothing like that. He mentally cannot do this. He cannot comprehend this. And I have to remind it's so easy to remind my husband that, and so hard to remind myself this. No, my son can't. He really can't do this. And that's a hard thing to come to terms with and remember in the heat of the moment when you're so unbelievably frustrated and worn out and tired. And some days you just want to put on the TV, give them the technology, and have a break because it is so exhausting. Even when your children are neurotypical, even when your kids are behaving perfectly and the whole day is just sunshine and rainbows and everything has gone right for you. It's still exhausting having children and raising people and just getting through your day yourself. Some days is tiring. So yeah, it's a lot. And this is just what I wanted to talk about. The frustrations of my home and the literal damage my son has caused to my house. Yeah, it's more than just needing discipline. It's more than just boundaries. There is something brain-wise, brain chemistry, brain health-wise, that is causing this kid to act the way he is acting. Yes, there is something to be said for boundaries and discipline and rules and all of that. But sometimes you can have all of that in place and still have a kid that just feels like they're absolutely wild and out of control. And you need more help than just a good schedule. Give people a little grace out there. You don't know what they're dealing with. If you see a 8-year-old or a 12-year-old or somebody having an absolute meltdown on the floor of the grocery store and you think that child is way too old to be having a meltdown like a 2-year-old, well, maybe mentally they are not 12 or 8 or 5 or whatever age you think they're too old to be having this meltdown. Give parents a little grace and encouragement. Tell them they're doing a good job. Help them. Offer them help. Their child is having a meltdown at the grocery store. Say, hey, do you want me to push your cart to the car? Or, hey, I can watch your grocery cart here in the middle of the aisle while you deal with your child, instead of just giving them a dirty look for not disciplining their child well enough. You don't be helpful and step in and be like, let me discipline your child, or let me talk to your child, or whatever. Just step in and say, Having kids is tough. You're doing a good job. I can watch your groceries while you handle this situation. Or if they're checking out, like maybe push their cart or help them load their groceries or something. And to the parents who have those children who are having that meltdown or whatever, learn to accept help when you need it, because we all need help. Don't refuse help from somebody that if the roles were reversed, you would be offering that help to them. Don't refuse it. You will have a chance to pay it forward one day. Parenting is tough, whatever the situation may be. I see you, and you're doing a good job. Keep it up, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Comment down below. Let's keep this conversation going. Bye.